Here's a couple of books that you should definitely add to your list. The first one is Black Food, edited by Bryant Terry. Bryant Terry is a cookbook author in his own right, but this book is a really beautiful compendium anthology that includes not only recipes, but poetry and illustrations and photography. Highly recommend, and also look at that cover, it's just sick. The other one is Pasta by Missy Robbins. Missy Robbins is like one of the great pasta chefs in America of all time. And this book has everything, how to make dough, extruded, rolled out, filled. You could spend the rest of your life just flipping through this and making the different pastas in this book. I mean, come on, get both books. These are the books you should get. This is very pleasing. It's truly a delight. Do you hear that? She's gorgeous. Oh, we love her. Hey guys, it's Carla. I'm back again with another episode of That Sounds So Good. And today I'm showing you one of my absolute favorite recipes in the book. It is from the weekend section, which is where I have the baking chapter, because I personally don't bake on a weeknight, but you can make it anytime you want. This is a lemon polenta sheet cake with cream cheese frosting. It is also my favorite spread in the book. I love this cake for a few different reasons. It has buttermilk in it, and I love buttermilk. It has polenta in it, and I also love polenta. It gives it like a delicious, savory, corny flavor and a beautiful yellow color. It's also got cream cheese frosting, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the only frosting worth talking about. And the best part about this cake, it is a perfect party cake because it actually tastes better on day 2. So it's one of those where getting ahead on the recipe actually makes the finished product even better. So let's pretend I'm having a party tomorrow and make a cake. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is butter and flour this dish. This is just to make sure that nothing sticks and the cake releases really easily. You can use your hands for this. You can use a pastry brush for it. My mom always did it with a paper towel, so I guess that's why I do this. And once you flour it, you'll be able to see any spots you missed. It's just regular all-purpose flour. When you first put it in, it wants to clump. Sometimes you have to like shake it free. This is gonna look weird, but I'm just gonna tap it out over my garbage can. Done. So the dessert chapter is the one chapter in the book where I made sure that I had both volume measurements and gram and milliliter measurements so that you don't have to scoop and level. You don't have to use measuring cups if you don't want to. So I need 420 grams of buttermilk. I actually don't have polenta today, but there are spinets in every single recipe. So I'm doing one of my own spinets, which is that if you don't have polenta, you can use cornmeal. You can also use grits as long as they're not instant. So polenta, grits, and cornmeal are all corn related. They're actually all different plants, but they will act the same way in this recipe. So it all goes. 70 grams. I mean, the nice thing about the scale is like I haven't taken out a bunch of measuring cups, but if you don't have a scale, you know, measuring cup. Vanilla extract, a whole tablespoon. It's a big cake. And I'm also adding a teaspoon of almond extract. You don't have to use the almond, you could just use the vanilla, but it really complements that like corn flavor and adds like a really nice richness and a really nice aroma. The last thing to go in is going to be just a couple tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. If you don't have extra virgin, just use regular vegetable oil. And I wouldn't use something like super pungent or super spicy or super vegetal because it'll just like overpower. But the nice little richness, like the oil, the corn, the buttermilk, the sugar, the almond, like it all is very delicious together. The reason I'm putting the polenta into the buttermilk from the beginning is that it has to hydrate. It's gonna give it a chance to soften. It has to sit for 20 minutes. It gives you a little bit of a breather. So I'm gonna set my buttermilk mixture aside and go into weighing a bunch more stuff. The entire batter for this cake is gonna get built in the bowl of the stand mixer. I definitely recommend a stand mixer. It's a large volume of batter, so it might be a little bit tricky with hand beaters. 2 cups of sugar, 384 grams. 1 lemon, we're gonna zest it into the sugar, and then I'm gonna save the juice for later on. Goes in the frosting. So before I add anything else to this, I'm gonna get in there with my fingers and really combine the sugar and the lemon. It will kind of hydrate the sugar. The sugar's gonna have a slightly different texture when I'm done, and it's also gonna have a little bit of a yellowish color to it, and it gets kind of fluffy. It smells delightful. I also just really enjoy this process because it smells great and it's very tactile and it's fun, and you're just squeezing all of the lemon zest into the sugar. And then you have lemon sugar. That's what you want it to look like when you're done. I also need 3 eggs, 3 large eggs, and 3 yolks, and that added richness from the egg yolk does something really magical to the crumb of the cake. It is very moist, it is very yellow, it's just very delicious. Words to live by. When in doubt, add fat. I'm gonna save the egg whites. You can freeze egg whites. In the distant future, when you're like, I'm gonna make pavlova, I'm gonna make an egg white omelet, then you'll do that with these. All right, so I have my beautiful lemon sugar in here, and now to that, I'm going to add 3 cups of all-purpose flour. A full teaspoon of kosher salt. You've got that savory polenta. You need a full teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. I want to whisk and combine everything. Go slow at the beginning because you have all this like plumes of flour and you don't want it to poof in your face. A lot of cakes and a lot of cookies will have you mix together the sugar and the butter at the beginning. I don't want to do that in this case. So this is called reverse creaming. The reason I don't want the butter and the sugar to get whipped into this light fluffy thing is because I actually want the cake to rise pretty evenly. And this is a great technique for that. So you're adding the butter to the dry ingredients without like totally aerating it, and that will get it incorporated and dispersed, and it's enriching and it's flavoring, but it's just not gonna give you a cake with a big dome in the middle, because in a sheet cake, that's not what you're looking for, and then it'll fall back down and make a big crack. So medium speed here, very, very small beads. That is what texture I'm going for at the end of this mixing process. What happens at the beginning, because there's a big volume, is like all of that butter is clumping in the center of the bowl. It is getting broken up, but there isn't enough flour. So as soon as you see that happening, you wanna turn the mixer off, go around the sides, go to the bottom. I also sometimes just do that to get the beater out of my way, because it's important that this is finely textured and uniform in texture. If you have clumps of butter and clumps of flour, you're gonna bake up into like little pockets of that in the finished cake. Okay, that to me is what finely grated parm looks like. Very, very tiny beads of butter suspended in the flour mixture. Cool? Now I'm gonna add the egg yolks and the buttermilk polenta mixture together. So just choose a measuring cup when you start with the buttermilk that's big enough. Okay, we're going low speed, and I'm gonna gradually add about half of the buttermilk and then scrape down and add the other half. The cool thing about cake, and people don't talk about this enough, but cake batter is an emulsion. And as soon as I heard that, it made me think about cake batter in a completely different way. Because it's an emulsion, and you can tell when it's off because it'll look greasy or it'll look dry. Just a little preliminary scrape down before I add the rest of the buttermilk. I don't want to overmix it like it as ever. Once you add liquid to flour, you're creating gluten, and we don't want like a chewy cake. We want some structure, but just like, you know, don't mix forever. So now I'm gonna increase the speed to medium high, and this is gonna whip until it gets really light and really fluffy. It will actually be less yellowy and more white. It's kind of remarkable. It's the air. All right, I think we have arrived at pale and fluffy. I'm gonna turn the speed off, and I'm just gonna make sure, going in with just the spatula one last time to make sure that the bottom doesn't have any like secret polenta treasures in it. Sometimes when you do this last stir, you'll see a streak of something that doesn't look right, or you might see beads of flour that have clumped, and that would be a signal that you should keep whisking. But in this case, it looks great. So now I can put it right into the pan. I'm buttered, I'm floured, I'm at 350, and we're gonna get this voluminous, emulsified, floofy cake batter into the pan. And now it's not like a very slidey kind of a batter, so you have to nudge it into your corners and smooth it out a little bit. All right, here we go. So I'd like to call attention to a few other books that should definitely be on your list. The first one is Life is What You Bake It by Valerie Lomas. And I gave this book to my son Cosmo to pick out a few recipes that he wanted me to make. And we ended up with half of the book has sticky notes on it. So a beautiful book with tons of baking recipes that feel very, very achievable at home. And then there's like more complicated things if you want to like really go for it. The other one is Ottolenghi Test Kitchen. This book was born out of the pandemic time. So if you've ever made an Ottolenghi recipe from one of the other books before and found it, you know, to have a lot of ingredients, delicious, but a lot of ingredients, this book is kind of not like that at all. So it uses a lot of things that you probably already have in your pantry, just inventive ways to like make quick dinner, weeknight, flavorful, delicious, very veg friendly, and really cool to look at. It's also the first cookbook out of the Ottolenghi, his test kitchen, and his team that he's been working with for a really long time. So put these on your list, get them for yourself, get them for a friend. Just, you know, books are good. While you're out buying that digital scale, if you plan to do like baking regularly in your life, I cannot recommend an oven thermometer highly enough. In fact, for any kind of cooking, your oven is not the temperature that you think it is, guaranteed. This is a very newish oven. It is 25 to 30 degrees off in either direction all the time. How would I have known? I wouldn't have. It's an oven thermometer. See, 338, and it's set to 360. Taking the cake out of the oven. Okay, so this is exactly what you're looking for. Dark brown color everywhere. Give it a little tap, make sure it springs back. And I'm gonna cool it in the pan for an hour. And then after an hour, you can take it out to finish cooling if you want it to go quickly, or if you're not gonna frost it till the next day, just leave it in the pan that you baked it in and it'll be ready for you to frost. Cream cheese frosting. I highly recommend using Philly cream cheese for this. The butter and the cream cheese should be at room temp. I have a stick of butter, 1 package of cream cheese, kosher salt, 1.5, and a teaspoon of vanilla. And I've got my zested lemon, 2 tablespoons. So that goes in. And then I'm gonna beat this with the paddle attachment. Says till combined 1 minute, but like, looks great already. Luscious and delightful. This is 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. And I'm gonna start low, because it's gonna fluff. Oh, I've been worried about fluffing today, and it's been totally fine. It's definitely combined. I'm just gonna push everything down, knock this sugar off the beater. Now I'm increasing the speed to medium-high. We'll go for like 3 minutes till it's very fluffy. Okay, it's looking very floofy now. Very gorgeous. The right amount of time has elapsed. I love it because it's not too sweet. I cannot stand frostings that are too sweet. It's just gross and cloying. And I love this one because it's like lemony and tangy from the cream cheese. Then you've got like buttermilk in the cake itself. So it's really just a like tangy situation. Fluffy, gorgeous, and delicious. This is also a cake if you were, really for any reason, it just makes sense to frost it in the baking pan, and then you can take it with you. Take it to a friend's house. Take it to the park. Take it upstairs to the TV room. Take it to the backyard. Or you could just leave it in this. It just makes it very easy to frost. Frosting meditation. It's really underrated. So the goal is gonna be to make it look as pretty as Susie, my food stylist, Susie Theodore. I will never succeed, but one can dream. So a back and forth is a vibe. Frosting, highway, right? But then like swoosh is a vibe. And then you could just do that for like half an hour and try to make every little snow peak and curly Q. And that's very fun and homemade. But I like the simplicity of frosting highway. And then you get a little swooshies when you turn around and go back the other direction, the U-turn. Hairpin turn ahead. Okay. I have the sprinkles that we had when we shot the book, because we shot the book in my house. So I have the exact same sprinkles. This is very pleasing. It's truly a delight. Do you hear that? She's gorgeous. Oh, we love her. All right, beautiful cake. Just grab and go. We're gonna have it here. This is birthday cake for my book. Yeah, I'm just gonna take a whole guy out. I don't know, I feel like that's the right size. Don't worry about what happened to that other piece. Everything's totally normal. For me and all my friends. I mean, come on. It's like a boat of cake. Happy birthday to Book. Whoever's birthday it is, happy birthday. I wish for the same things I always wish for. World peace and financial security. The corny flavor is so good. I'm not just gonna describe it as corn cake because that would be very misleading, but a normal yellow cake just doesn't have enough going on. It's just like purely sweet or purely vanilla. And the corn flavor is like a whole other situation. I have to try it again to prove it. I love this cake. I hope you make it. I hope you make it for your friends. And I hope you have a great time. And I hope you love cream cheese. If you don't love cream cheese frosting, I would say unsubscribe. But for everybody else, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.